we'll just get stuck right in. Lovely to see you all today and hear that you're hiding from the rain. Thanks for joining us today. Just to introduce you to who you'll be seeing today, you've got myself, Natalie. I am the program manager for Startup First Steps, the course you're here to hear about. And then I'll also be joined by Shona Marsh, who is our VP of Programs. She'll be joining later on in the session for the Q&A section. And then we've got Molly, who is the program coordinator for First Steps and for many other of our education courses. And she'll be helping with the tech side. So if you have any tech issues, message Molly. All right, so before I get into the main part of this section or of the session, which is about First Steps, I want to first touch on Techscaler. Some of you may not be aware of what Techscaler is, so I wanted to take some time to go over that. So Techscaler is a Scottish government funded programme which is delivered by CodeBase, and the purpose of Techscaler is to increase the number of successful tech startups and scale-ups across Scotland. And Techscaler does this by offering education courses, mentorship opportunities and community events. It is free to become a member. It always has been free. It always will be free. So it is accessible to anyone within Scotland. And what exactly do we mean by a tech startup? So Techscaler defines a tech startup as a startup that's building a single software product as the core of their business model, or any sector or vertical that software and innovation are factors. So for example, health tech, cyber tech, agri-tech, all of these would come under the tech startup sort of umbrella. And while I'm aware that you're all sort of based somewhere rainy, I would like to know a little bit more about the audience who are joining us today. So I've got a few polls planned up. We'll see how they go. And the first one is just to get a sense of how many of you are already Techscaler members, or how many of you are not, and how many of you are not sure if you're a member or not. So I'm seeing quite a lot of people who are already members, but equally a few of you who are not. Fantastic. And a few unsure. Fantastic. I'll just leave that open for a couple more seconds. So delighted to see that most of you are Techscaler members. So apologies for me going through that slide on Techscaler, but for those of you who are not, hopefully that sort of clarified what Techscaler is. I'm going to stop sharing that now. So Startup First Steps. What is Startup First Steps? Well, that's the course you're here to learn about. And Startup First Steps is one of the courses that is offered via the Techscaler program. It's a funded, practical, cohort-based 12-week accelerator course for all Techscaler members. So you must be a Techscaler member in order to access Startup First Steps. It's designed for current or soon-to-be tech startup founders at the very early stages of their startup journey. And throughout the 12 weeks, we cover how to discover, develop, and test your ideas, how to get the first version of your product into market, how to grow your customer base, and fund your early work. What's great, or what's unique about the Startup First Steps course, is that there's no cost or equity stake involved. So it's free to become a Techscaler member, and there's no cost or equity stake involved with the Startup First Steps program specifically. Moving on to who Startup First Steps is for. So I mentioned this is really for early stage founders, but within that bracket of early stage, there are a lot of stages in that bracket. So I do want to stress, however, that it doesn't matter if you are a technical or non-technical founder. That doesn't matter. If you are a founder at the early stages, this course will still be able to support you. The absolute minimum requirement to take part in First Steps is that you are an individual actively exploring the viability of a tech startup idea in a specific sector, market, customer, or problem area. So that's the absolute minimum. And below you'll see some other bullets. That's not an exhaustive list. That's just to give you an idea of the type of early stage founder that might find First Steps of value. So as I said, this is not exhaustive. If you don't see yourself represented in those bullet points, that's absolutely fine. Hopefully the modules will give you a better sense if it's the right course for you at the right time. So that's who Startup First Steps is for. Who might not get as much value from Startup First Steps? So I've got a few examples there. The top one is founders with a product and market with an existing and growing paying customer base. So if that sounds like you and where you and your business is at, startup first steps might be a bit too early stage for you, and you might be better suited to one of the education courses that support founders at a further stage of the startup journey. And the other educational offerings for that kind of level is Startup Next Steps and our Reforge membership, which is for scale-up level. The other group who might not find as much value from Startup First Steps are individuals interested in entrepreneurship, but don't quite have a specific tech startup idea in a sector, market, customer, or problem area yet. If that sounds like you, you might find our self-paced online course, Startup Basics, of value at the moment. And then at a later point, perhaps Startup First Steps might be right for you. And the last bullet is, it might not be Startup First Steps might not be of value to startup operators who are not the founder or co-founder. So Startup First Steps is aimed at founders and co-founders. It's not to say that you can't do it if you're not a founder or co-founder. It's just something to keep in mind. And again, when we get to the modules, hopefully that will help you better understand if this is content that would be useful for you at the moment. So this slide shows the 4 different courses that I mentioned there. So you can see Basics is our pre-startup offering. Startup First Steps is the early stage. Startup Next Steps is the mid stage. And Reforge membership is offered for those at the scale-up stage onwards. So those are the 4 education courses offered through Techscaler membership. And I wanted to show this slide because I think it's important to mention that you don't have to go through the courses in a linear fashion. By that, I mean, you don't need to start at Startup Basics, then do Startup First Steps, then Next Steps, then Reforge. You could be a participant who's maybe been through Startup Next Steps, then you might look at Startup First Steps and think, actually, I would quite like to revisit some of these topics, and you'd be more than welcome to take part. So there's no sort of specific order that you have to approach these courses. You're more than welcome to enter and exit the courses at different points, depending on where you are in your specific journey. With that in mind, I've got another poll. So hopefully that one works. And the question is, which stage do you consider your startup or idea to be at? So I've just launched the poll there. A few different options should be coming up on your screen. So the first one is, I have an interest in tech startups, but no specific idea yet. I have an early stage idea in a specific sector, market, customer, problem area. I am building an MVP. I have built an MVP and exploring next steps. And I have a product and market with retained customers. So I'm, again, just trying to get a sense of the audience here and where you see yourself at the moment. So I'll leave that open for another wee second. I sip some water. All right. I'm going to share those results with you all. So I can see that the majority of you have an early stage idea in a specific sector, market, customer, problem area, which is fantastic. For those of you who selected that one, I'm building an MVP, or I have built an MVP, exploring next steps. Startup First Steps might be right for you. I can see one of you has put, I have a product and market with retained customers. Whoever that individual is, Startup First Steps might be a bit too early for you. That being said, you're still more than welcome to apply if you think that the modules would be useful for you to go through at this point. But thank you all for engaging with that one. So speaking of the modules, this is a sort of overview of the modules that we cover across the 12 weeks. So I mentioned Startup First Steps is a 12-week program. 2 of those weeks are break weeks, or it would actually be more accurate to call them reflection or reading weeks. During the break weeks, you'll be expected to sort of take a moment to reflect on the material that you've covered and start applying it to your specific idea or startup. The team will also be running optional workshops, events, hot desking days, co-working days during these weeks as well, so that you'll have the opportunity to come together and reflect on the material as a cohort. But what's really great about the break weeks is that I think it very nicely splits the course into 3 blocks. So the very first block there, block 1, which is on the left-hand side covering week 1 to week 4, covers topics, research and development approaches, which will help early stage founders avoid failure at the very initial hurdles. So that would be looking at really understanding the problem that you're trying to solve, really getting a better grasp and understanding the different market or markets that you want to innovate within, the size of them and the opportunity within those markets, really getting to understand your customers, how to build with your customers in mind, and how to make sure that customer feedback research can really inform the next steps that you take with your startup. And then moving on to block 2, that center part there. This is where we move into the sort of productizing section. It's more about building a product around the solution that you've arrived at based on the research that you've done up until this point, but still very much being open to iteration. So what does that mean? This means that you're, instead of investing a lot of money by paying a developer to build a specific idea, we really want to coach participants to learn how to approach building in a low cost, low risk, and low tech way. It's very much about learning what works as you build, and it's not building a specific core idea. So it's building a little bit and changing based on customer feedback as you go. And then also in this section, we'll look at how to enter your market, how to acquire initial customers and build beyond the existing network that you are within. And that final block there, block 3, is how to sort of businessify, or how to wrap a business around what you have built up until this point. So that might be an early product, and how to avoid the common pitfalls that founders have made time and time again. So that'll be looking at the funding options available to you. There is a whole range of different funding options, and everyone will be a little bit different. Another big part of that is pitching. So that's not just pitching to investors, it's learning how to pitch the value of the solution and the innovation you've created, and be able to sell that or talk about that to investors, early employees, customers, anyone who asks what you're doing and why it's important. It's really important that you're able to hone that skill of talking about what you do and adapting it to the situation that you find yourself in. So that's what the pitching week is all about. And then week 10 is an excuse to celebrate, basically. The cohort will be getting together, celebrate about the progress that they've made across the 12 weeks, and have the opportunity to pitch to each other and looking ahead and get motivated about the exciting things to come for you all. And I should say that each of the weeks, all of the workshops are facilitated and led by our brilliant speakers who come from various backgrounds. We've got industry experts, startup founders, and startup operators leading each of these workshops. A few that we've booked in already include individuals who've worked at Skyscanner before, Free Agent, and one of the founders has went viral on TikTok. So the common thread is that all of the speakers and facilitators are able to speak from real lived experience of working within or founding a startup. So hopefully that gives you a better idea of what kind of to expect from the course. Looking at outcomes, before getting into this slide, I just want to say that outcomes will look different for each individual participant. As I mentioned, within that early stage bracket, there'll be people coming in at different stages within that bracket. So outcomes will look different for each person who goes through it. However, we do hope that participants will be able to leave the course feeling confident about getting the first version of their product into market and understand how to grow their customer base. And we really encourage participants who take part to work on their startup or idea alongside it. You know, you really want to build momentum, and a great way to do it is while this program is running. Take advantage of hot desking and co-working opportunities. Networking is always super important. The reason why this is a live course is so that you can come and meet people at a similar stage. So make sure that you take advantage of course networking opportunities and getting involved with the wider Techscaler opportunities that are going on. In terms of delivery, the course is delivered hybrid and it is available across Scotland. So whether you are based in Shetland or whether you're in Dumfries or in Dundee, you will be able to access this course. So there are 3 formats in which you can engage with the weekly workshops. The first one is you can be in person wherever the live session is taking place. So that's where the CodeBase staff and the speakers are physically based. Or you can join your local watch party. So say the CodeBase staff and speakers are not in your local hub that week, there will always be a meeting room booked out for you to come to the local hub, meet other participants in your area and stream the session with people in your area. So you still have an in-person experience without having to travel to the other side of Scotland. And then, of course, if online is always an option as well. If you're not able to access a live hub, an in-person hub, or just fancy, or if it's a rainy day and you just want to join from home on a particular day, that's also fine. We've got 7 hubs across Scotland, so hopefully everyone here will be able to have a local hub to them. We've got Inverness, Aberdeen, Dundee, where I am today, Stirling, Edinburgh, Glasgow, and coming soon is one opening up in Dumfries. So with that being said, this is my last poll. We'd love to know where you're based. Obviously, you popped in the comments where some of you are based. But for those of you who missed the very start, please do let me know which of our hubs you are based closest to. Okay, thank you. I'm seeing already a lot of people based in Edinburgh, but fantastic to see there's representation across all of the hubs from what I can see so far. Keep it open for another wee second. All right, and I'll share that with you all. So I can see majority in Edinburgh, but fantastic to see that there's a nice spread across all of the hubs, which is great. Fab. Okay, so one other thing I wanted to touch on before we head into the Q&A section is our online community. So the way that we deliver the course is via live workshops, but also we have running alongside the live workshops is the private online group that we have. So this is a space for course participants to chat about what happened during the sessions, discuss, share ideas. It's also where you'll be able to access all of the resources for the course, including the Zoom links, including recordings. It is where the staff will update, staff such as myself and Molly will update what's happening with each session, where it's going to be, how to access each of the hubs. And our online community platform is going to also be the main point of contact with the education team, including myself and Molly. So if you decide to go ahead with First Steps and you receive that email inviting you to the private group, please do join. It's super, super important. And it will be great to have you on there. So that picture on the right-hand side is a screenshot for the private group from the last cohort of First Steps, which was really, really fun. And before I stop talking, I just want to touch on some really important dates. So when is the course happening? As a reminder, it's a 12-week course starting on the 11th of January, running until the 28th of March. They will take place, the live workshops will take place every Thursday from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. And some other important dates to note that the application deadline to apply for this cohort of Startup First Steps is the 23rd of November. And the enrolment deadline is the 30th of November. The difference between that is the application deadline is the deadline to apply for Techscaler membership. And the enrolment deadline is the deadline to complete the form specifically enrolling in the course Startup First Steps. And the last sort of date or dates I want to flag is the dates for our regional welcome mixers. So even though I'll be meeting you all in January, I would like any excuse to hang out and get to know you before then. So in December, Molly and I are organising regional welcome mixers where we'll invite all of you to come to your local hub and meet the First Step participants in your region from the last cohort. And it's a nice way to visit your regional hub if you haven't already, get to meet myself and Molly, and meet the other people who will be taking part in the course in your region. So really hope to see you there if you decide to take part in First Steps this time round. And it's not on there, but this is not the only cohort of First Steps. There will be future cohorts. So if this date doesn't work for you, there will be opportunities in the future as well. That's enough talking for me, I think. So we're going to head to the Q&A section. There is the chat function and the Q&A function there as well. If you've got any questions, please pop them in the Q&A section just so we can make sure that we don't miss it. In the meantime, I'll just double check I've not missed anything in the chat. Thanks for sharing all that, Molly. And I'll invite Shona to come back or to introduce herself to help me with the Q&A section.
I can do, but I'm an invisible presence because apparently I don't have permission to share my video. There's something wrong with my face today, maybe. You might have to unblock the video, Natalie. It says something about the host doing that. But yeah, I haven't seen any questions in the chat or the Q&A yet, but if people could pop questions in that they have about either the course, the structure, whether it's suitable for you, logistics, like anything of the above, welcome in terms of questions. As Natalie mentioned, I look after the design of our program, so anything about the content and speakers that you might be in touch with, or things that you're looking to get help with, and then Natalie and Molly are the delivery queens, so we'll be able to answer any questions about how it's delivered, how we might be able to support your access to the programs and things like that. Question from Erin: what have former graduates of First Steps gone on to do? Which is a great question.
Definitely been a good mix. Yeah, Shona, try and there we go. Made it happen. It's been quite a mix. So the last cohort of Startup First Steps ended on June 21st. So it's been coming up 6 months since the last cohort. Some of them have went on to continue with the other education courses that we offer through Techscaler. So some of them are on the Startup Next Steps course. Some of them have went on to launch their MVP and are acquiring customers. One of them recently went on CodeBase's podcast, which was very cool. Shout out to Richie. Anything else that you can think of, Shona?
No, I think that covers it. I think Molly might have a link to the podcast that should be able to pop in for you to see Richie's what Richie's done, and she shared the video of the end of cohort video that we did at the showcase in June, so you can see what people have said about their experience and the value they got from it. So yeah, there's a number of them who are actively working on their startups. And another part of the Techscaler member benefits is that you get, once you do have a product that you're starting to launch to market and you're actively pursuing, you get one-to-one mentorship matching. So you'll be matched with a mentor who's got expertise in either the sector that you're looking to develop something in, or in a specific area that you're needing more support in. So that might be fundraising at a specific time, it might be product development, it might be growing your team, it might be marketing. So we've got lots of industry experts who've done this many times before, successfully and unsuccessfully, so you can learn from their mistakes. And once you finish Startup First Steps, if your product is launched, if you launch a product and you're live, then you'll be matched with a mentor to support your journey as well. So some of them, it's not designed so that you roll straight off of First Steps and into another program. It's designed so that that's then a sort of reflection point for taking your business further. We've got some questions here, Natalie. So great question from Connor. Missed the first 10 minutes or so this might have been covered, but wondered if this course is suitable for startups that have developed a product but haven't quite yet gone to market in a meaningful way, or is this designed for early, like just idea stage projects?
So good question, Connor. So within the early stage bracket, there's lots of different ways in which that early stage is kind of represented. So for example, in the last cohort, we had people who just had an idea, and we also had people who were just about to launch their MVP into market. So within that early stage, there is quite a range of kind of individuals. So I would say, yes, Startup First Steps would still be for you. I would say definitely have a look over the sort of curriculum that we've got on the landing page there, just to double check if it is quite right for you. It's really up to you, but we have had people like you on Startup First Steps previously.
Yeah, and I'd say definitely. We even had someone who was even later stage, who's actually previously built and sold a business and is further along in their current idea, and they just wanted that support to help them move faster and more efficiently. And so the 10 weeks gave them that real consolidated 10-week period to make sure that they're on the right track, to iterate on some of the things that they'd been pondering over, and to really make some progress. And actually the people that were further along when they joined First Steps, and it sounds like they'd be a similar level to where you are at the moment, have gone straight into the Next Steps program, which is for founders who have a product in market with customers. And so it just means that you're likely to be tipping further along that journey quicker. So definitely sounds like it would be an ideal stage for you to join. Christina, I've completed the first part of the course already. Market research, user research, design and prototyping. I'm interested in the second part of this course. How would that work in this case? So Christina, I don't know if there's some nuance to that. Did you join us for First Steps and then this time and dropped out, or have you done that as part of a different program? I'm not sure what the context of that is, but Natalie, maybe you can pick that up.
I think there are some individuals who felt maybe the specific workshops to be of most value to them. However, a lot of people have found it useful to sort of revise the earlier stages as well. So as Shona mentioned, we've had people on the course who have went through the startup process before, but they were really interested in going through it again in the context of an education course with a cohort there. So it's an opportunity, you know, these things such as market research, user research, it's always worthwhile coming back to this. So basically, yes, you'd be more than welcome to join the course. You might even find that going through these stages again might be of use. But it sounds like specifically the later part of the course might be of more use. But I would recommend kind of getting involved with all of it. But you'd still be welcome to join.
Yeah, if it's that you've done it separately and not as part of the last First Steps cohort, then I wouldn't recommend opting out of stuff. You'll miss meeting the cohort, building that community, learning from others. And we do, the way that the course has been designed, or I've tried to design, is that it's all linked together. So we'll come back to bits that are mentioned in the first 3 weeks in the other weeks, and we try and make sure that, well, not even try, we make sure that all the speakers have reference points from all of the weeks, so that it's really tied, so that by the time you get to the end, everything has been linked, nothing has been unuseful, as it were. And it's really about the holistic view of building that product. So would recommend you come to all. And I think, Natalie, in terms of looking at course completion, we have a specific percentage that we normally look at, that we need people to have completed for it to have qualified as completion.
Yep. So we have at the end to if you've officially completed the course, you will have attended at least 60% of the live sessions. And once you've completed at least 60%, completed the pre and the post-course survey, and we'll be able to issue you with a certificate to put on your LinkedIn. But you won't be necessarily kicked out of the course if you haven't attended 60%. It's more you tell us directly if you've decided to drop out, and if you haven't, we just assume that perhaps you're watching back on the recordings and things like that, but we can only issue a certificate if we can see you on attendance that you've attended at least 60%.
Yeah. A question from Graham: is this course geared towards software, or can it also apply to hardware? And Graham, I don't know if you've got some context around whether, usually with hardware there is a software element, so I would say that we just need to confirm that piece, because the software element is the bit that is the overarching theme of the topics that we cover. That's what's unique about Techscaler courses compared to other business development courses. So there would need to be a software element in it. In terms of being a software hardware mix, absolutely, this works for it. We had a couple of wearables in the last session, in the last cohort, and a couple of other hardware software businesses. And we have just partnered with, I'm not going to remember the name of it, Filament Stack in Glasgow, which is an Internet of Things testbed centre space for hardware software testing. So we'll be developing that partnership out to provide support. And actually, the person who ran our product to market tactics session in the last cohort comes from a hardware software product, a robot that's software training for children. So it was a mix as well. So we do try and include different types of business models, different types of technology in the speaker diversity, and also in the content. But the content is more generic in terms of it's about building a software product and how you scale, how you launch that. But there are elements that can be related across as well. And I hope that answers. If not, please drop in the chat if that hasn't answered that in full.
We've got a question from Martina asking, my idea is an add-on to another startup business. Is this okay?
That's perfect. So if you're, I don't know what type of business your OG business is, but if it's often tech startup ideas come out of service or agency models where you've found that you're repeating processes over and over again and you think there's a better way to do it, or you find a business problem in the customer base that you have that you want to tackle. And so absolutely, this is also potentially worthwhile for someone who's launching a new product within an existing product, or a new spin-off or a new feature, because it takes you back just basically to feature mapping, and how you design software that meets users' needs to fix their problems. So yes, that would absolutely be suitable. And we'd love to have you, because you'll have experience from your main business that you'll be able to bring to feed into some of the program as well. Question from Andrew for you, Natalie. Is it a single cohort for the whole of Scotland, or is it split up regionally?
Great question, Andrew. So it is a bit confusing to explain, but it is a single cohort for the whole of Scotland. The idea is that every week the workshops will be delivered live in person, and we'll be moving around each of the hubs each week. So one week I might be in Glasgow, the next week I might be in Dundee, the week after in Inverness. However, for each of those weeks, there will be a space available at your local hub where you'll be able to come and stream the session live with those who are also in your region, on top of the option of being able to join virtually online if you want to join from home. So TLDR, yes, it is one cohort for the entirety of Scotland, with the goal of visiting each hub individually. So you'll all get the opportunity to have that in-person interaction with the CodeBase team and our speakers as well.
And question from Mo for you, Natalie. Have you seen in past cohorts people join up to become co-founders?
Good question. Certainly. CodeBase has ran other programs before, and we've seen people join forces, sort of been working on a similar idea and decided to become co-founders from that. And that's also why this is a live course, because there's so much value in being able to meet other people at this similar stage. You never know what kind of connections happen. So in terms of potentially finding a cohort, we can't guarantee it, but it has happened before. So that's why we really, if you are able to come in person to your local hub or visit other hubs during the course, we'd really, really encourage that. So yes, we have seen it.
And I think it's the more you put into that part of the program, the more you'll get out of it. And we're starting to see, so we're right in the middle of Next Steps program at the moment, and we're starting to see these businesses are a little bit further ahead, so they're live in market, they're acquiring customers, and they're actually starting to become not necessarily customers, but user testers for each other's products as well, and some of them customers too. And so there's a real value and power to coming in person and joining. You'll get to speak to the speakers one-to-one as well, and you'll get to have sort of extra sort of personal touches that really do come sort of from coming to the hubs, so highly recommend that. And then Mo's got a bit of a follow-up there, which was, how do we help connect founders to advisors that can support building an MVP? So I guess a big part of this is that our mantra at CodeBase is that startups are for everyone. We believe that MVPs, or I believe personally that MVPs can be built without having a technical co-founder, or without paying X amount of money to an agency to build you a fully functioning MVP, and that actually the MVP comes from experimenting on solutions that may be manual or other. And there's that 3-week block that will really show you during first steps that that's possible, without you needing an advisor to build it, that it can come from you as a founder, and that there are solutions out there. Specifically in week 6, we have a no-code founder who's built and sold a couple of no-code businesses, who guides you through solutions that you'll be able to use as a non-technical founder as well. And then we also have suggestions for other places that you can get that support. I don't know if you want to add anything to that, Natalie.
I think as well, I mentioned that First Steps is not just for non-technical or technical people, it's for both. So just going back to that question on meeting potential co-founders, it very well may be the case that you meet someone who has come from a technical background who's working on something similar, and you might combine forces to create this business. Again, can't guarantee that, but crazier things have happened, and these things do happen if you meet the right person. So that's all I would add to that.
Yeah, great. Amanda's got a question. She's already a Techscaler member. The link seems to ask for you to apply to be a member instead of signing up. So I think, Amanda, we might need to take that offline as a one-to-one. Let's write your name down and we'll check. The best thing you can do is to email membership at techscaler.co.uk, and that goes straight to the team that manage the processes around this, and will be linked in if necessary. So definitely drop that email address a message, and we'll also have a quick look behind the scenes. I'm having to scroll down because there's so much chat going on.
No,
You've written the name down.
I've written your name, Amanda, so we'll make sure that you're followed up with the next steps.
Will Robertson, I'm not sure if the business would meet the criteria of a Techscaler business based on the definition given. Should I just apply, or are discovery calls available to see if our business is a match? I would recommend applying because it will be followed up with a discovery call if there's more information that we need. Maybe you want to drop a little bit more information, feel free to direct message me or Natalie on Zoom and we can have a quick look, but I can't guarantee we'll do that before the end of the call. But again, membership at techscaler.co.uk, great place to start, but just dropping an application. It's a really quick application form. I haven't got too much detail, so it's definitely worth just sending that in. Oh, TLDR is coming up a lot in there. There's a chat about TLDR. That's it.
Sorry, Elle.
It's like the executive summary version. Too long didn't read or don't read. Lauren Grant, should we get comfortable with the likes of Figma before starting, or is there anything else that we should look at?
There's nothing, well, the only thing we advise folk to go through for startup first steps is to work through our earlier course, Startup Basics. So I mentioned that during the presentation. It's our education offering for the pre-startup phase, and it introduces you to kind of startup jargon, concepts, ideas that will be really useful coming into first steps for. And that's something that we'll share on the onboarding process, how to access Startup Basics. It's not mandatory, but it is highly encouraged. So in terms of Figma, I don't believe so, Shona, but it's just Startup Basics that we really encourage folk to work through before going ahead with first steps.
Yeah, definitely. I don't know if Molly, if you dropped a link to Startup Basics in it, or if you could, that would be really helpful for everyone. Definitely recommend going through Startup Basics, introduce you to sort of the concept of startup building and disruption theory, why startups might be different to building a different type of business, tech startups in particular, and we'll get you familiar with some of that terminology that we're going to start using through the program. In terms of Figma specifically, actually that's mentioned in week 6. So when we look at product discovery, Sam will drop that in as one of his no-code options. For those that don't know, Figma is a design tool. I think it was actually acquired by Adobe recently, and it's a design tool that helps you do layouts for web designs or what they call wireframes for web applications or mobile applications, so that you can do clickable prototyping. And so that's exactly what we talk about in terms of using tools that help you design as a non-technical person. And Figma is exactly an example of that. So if you know of it and you've used it before, then you're ahead of the game on that session. But no, you don't need to be familiar with any specific tools. We don't teach the tech or specific types of tech. We show you what's available and we teach you methods or guide you through methods that you can use to apply that's suitable for your own startup. Perfect. Oh, great. Mo, can we register our startup to be headquartered out of CodeBase as part of this program? So some of you might be aware that, or might not be, but this is a great opportunity to share, that our hubs have membership options for hot desking, co-working, or for office space. If you are a member and have an office here, then you will be able to use that as your office address. But otherwise, not. No, you'd need to be a member here to have that as an option. So definitely have a look. If you've applied for Techscaler membership, you'll be in touch with one of the team and talk to them about the options. And I think, Natalie, you mentioned that on the days of the sessions, you'll be welcome to join us in the hubs for hot desking for the rest of the day after the session is finished as well. So you can see what it's like and whether you'd like to become a member there too.
Absolutely, yeah. So there is space to hot desk and co-work at your local hub on the days of the workshops. And that's so that for those of you who might be working from home or just want that change of space to kind of experience working in that kind of startup-y environment, and that's a really nice way to do so. So I hope that you'll all take advantage of that when the time comes.
Absolutely. Question for you, Natalie. Nippon, How fast have startups grown during the programs from first steps to next steps? And looking at considering if founders are working on their MVP full time, or maybe whether it's still a bit of a side hustle.
It's really depends. I mean, if you're working on your startup full time, we would imagine you would be progressing a lot faster than someone who's maybe doing this alongside a full time job. We've had a few people who did first steps the last time, but we're probably at the kind of later stages of the early stage, if that makes sense, who have progressed immediately onto next steps. But we've also had people who were maybe at the much earlier stages for first steps who are not quite at that next step stage. I can't give you a defined answer as it is super individual to the person, but if you're working on this full time, and yeah, I imagine you would progress faster, but it's super individual, really.
Yeah, and in terms of working on it full time, I mean, there's various stages and there's various ways to launch a thing. It could be that you get funding for it, leave your job, or find the money and are able to commit full time to experimentation, but most people can't do that. So it's a really individual situation. What we ask for first steps is that you're committed to really testing the viability of an idea as a bare minimum. So if you're ready to go all in and test whether it would work, and that also means being open to coming to the end of the course and thinking, actually, the idea I came in with won't work because the product solution is too expensive for the business model that I've come up with, or those sorts of things, but you've used the program to pivot your idea, then you might be back at an earlier stage and having to be readdressing some of those things. So yeah, it's very, very individual, as Natalie's mentioned. Okie dokes. That is all the questions I've got. We've got 2 minutes, possibly, if people want to drop some last minute questions in.
I just want to say that, William, I can see your paragraph and I'm going to
Same.
save that and and follow up with you directly so we can see it. Thank you for sharing.
Actually, I've had a very quick read and I'd say, yes, please apply. That's perfect. You'll maybe find a way where you can not cobble together. So I'll use a brief example, but it's if you're already using things that you've plugged together. So for example, in the past, I've built something using WordPress where I've then had to buy an add-on or a plugin to cobble together an extra feature that the WordPress template doesn't have, if anyone can relate to that. And so it wasn't my owned software product, it was using WordPress. That's exactly where this experimentation piece in the middle of the program comes in, is if you're cobbling together a solution from existing software options, open source software options or no code options, then this is a great place to really develop your thinking around your business, and to then look at whether there's viability in you building something that's bespoke to you. So there's yes, what for you specifically, William, absolutely perfect. And for other people, if you've already started experimenting with the solution, first steps is definitely a really good place for you to cement what that solution looks like and the viability of taking it forwards into a bespoke software solution that you build out yourself.
One thing I just want to add before we finish up, I can't see any other questions, but in the next, what day are we on? Let's just say a few weeks. I can't think how many days it is from now. We're running an event that's about low and no code, and it's very much at the first steps level, and it coincides with a lot of what we teach during first steps with an approach to building low cost, low tech, and low risk. And we're having we're hosting an event that goes over how to set up a few different products with these low code, no code tools. So I'm just going to share that in the chat. And yes, so it's of a first steps level. So for those of you who asked about support in building an MVP, or have any questions about what that kind of center block would look like, I would really encourage you to come along. So I'll just pop that in the chat. And if there are no more questions, we're 1 minute over, but thank you all so much for your engagement, your fantastic questions. If you have any follow-up questions, please do reach out. Hope to see lots of you in First Steps and get to know you all over the coming months. But yes, thank you. Have a fantastic, hopefully not as rainy rest of your day. And that's all from us.